Pulse wasn't just a nightclub. It was a place where people could come to feel welcome. It didn't matter who you were, who you wanted to be. You felt loved. This is what Pulse is now.
It was really important to me that people learned not only the story of what happened at Pulse that night, but also what you can do differently in your life to change the future, how we can become a better society, a better human race. That's why I began the foundation.
I hope that the memorial will bring people together from all walks of life, but I also hope that it can be a place of love.
As a family member, I said, I hope they turn this place into a museum. I want people to come visit so they can take what happened here and pass it on.
I'm really excited about the educational opportunity of the museum and the wonderful things that the onePULSE Foundation is working on to build a stronger global community.
And my hope is that when they walk out, they've learned not only what happened on June 12th, but how to be a better human, that they will be able to spread the message that we will not let hate win. They will leave equipped how to do that.
The interim memorial now is built and it's amazing.
The pictures that are on the barrier wall are of love and support and unity, but mostly you'll see a community, a global community.
This is a magical place. It's always a rainbow, or you'll see a cloud look like an angel. It's peaceful.
People ask if they should come to the memorial. I always recommend it.
It is so welcoming.
There are so many stories.
You can't help but feel the impact. I think everyone should see this.
You'll be so happy that you did.
Gives you a lot of energy of how to go forward.
And it's a really beautiful cathartic experience.
And they're teaching kids that there's no difference between one another person. You always should love.
We found it really important that our angels were not just a name on a wall. And that's why we developed our scholarship program. We had 49 individual scholarships, each in the name of one of our angels, designated by their family members as a way to make sure that their stories lived on forever.
After visiting the memorial, we want people to feel like they're changed for the better, that they want to get involved because the goal is really to stop hate.
There are just so many ways that people can engage with the foundation, volunteering at our offices, helping us with our events, even just being a guide on site. It's an easy, simple way to be part of the solution.
Being a volunteer for the onePULSE Foundation, it's a life-changing experience.
Come out, check it out, and get involved. Go to the onePULSE Foundation website.
Donate to the onePULSE Foundation to help us build the memorial site to honor all of them, to keep the memories going forever.
Everybody's human. Treat everybody equally.
Love still wins, and the message is still alive and well.
It's going to change your life.
We will not let hate win.
We will not let hate win.
We will not let hate win.
Nosotros no dejaremos que el odio gane.
We will not let hate win.
We will not let hate win.
We will not let hate win.
Love is love, and we will not let hate win.
Pulse nightclub in Orlando was not just a place where people could be free to be themselves, but a place to find community and safety. To know that the essence of Pulse was shattered by a mass shooting and terrorist attack in our country remains just as unimaginable today as it was that night, June 12, 2016. The National Pulse Memorial and Museum is intended to preserve the heart of Pulse, a place where everyone was welcomed and loved. The memorial would be designed as a place to grieve, to honor lives taken and saved, as well as serve as a place to heal and learn. The museum will serve as a community space to tell the history of safe spaces, the tragedy of June 12, 2016, and the response and support of the world. I hope you'll join me in supporting the onePULSE Foundation and help build the National Pulse Memorial and Museum so that we never forget what happened to those precious lives that were taken. We won't let hate win.
Welcome, everyone. I am Chad Schwartz, Chair of onePULSE Foundation Education Committee, and I want to thank you for joining us tonight for our first film screening and panel discussion of this year. Our film screenings, called Conversation Starters, are part of a broader conversation series that is made possible through the generous contribution of our sponsors. We want to thank JP Morgan Chase & Company, Central Florida Foundation, Lockheed Martin, Orlando Utilities Commission, and Skanska USA Building for making these screenings and courageous conversations with the panelists possible, so we can continue to positively impact change at the individual, group, and community levels. I hope that you enjoy the brief films that we are screening this evening. And please join me in welcoming Dr. Earl Mowatt, Vice President of Education with onePULSE Foundation.
I'm Dr. Earl Mowatt, Vice President of Education for onePULSE Foundation. Our mission is to create and support a memorial that opens hearts, a museum that opens minds, educational programs that open eyes, and legacy scholarships that open doors. To date, we have awarded more than 500,000 scholarships to undergraduate and graduate students. They are carrying on the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of our 49 angels. Our educational programming under onePULSE Academy officially launched last year this time with our first conversation starter film screening of the film 90 Days. We followed that with 2 more screenings, the editor's cut of Disarm Hate and From Selma to Stonewall, Are We There Yet? We are thrilled to partner nationally with amazing writers, directors, and producers to showcase their important work and to open up conversation afterwards. You'll be introduced later to our incredible panelists. They will be leading us in the discussion tonight after we screen our 3 short films. We are so excited to bring you 3 amazing films this evening, and they are An Introduction to Transgender People, Get Off My Turf, and The Things That Make Us. We'd like to thank the National Center for Transgender Equality for graciously allowing us to publicly screen their film, An Introduction to Transgender People. And we'll also like to thank my generation for allowing us to screen Get Off My Turf and The Things That Make Us. We're about to get things started, but before we start, please note that parental discretion is advised because there's some adult languages and themes associated with the films. So please sit back and enjoy the show, and be sure to stay logged in after the last film for the panel discussion with our amazing guests. I'll see you back then. Enjoy.
Oh, hi, Chloe.
Hi, Penny. How are you?
Oh, just fine, thank you.
Good. How was the book club without me?
Oh, well, we missed you, as we would, of course. And how was your conference?
Oh, the teachers' conference was really good, actually. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it.
I have to run, though. But
I
good
understand.
to see
you now. Bye-bye. As I said on the radio this morning, it's like, to me, and I think just about everybody else, it's completely obvious when these so-called trans women come and pretend to be women, and that it's always so incredibly obvious to me anyway. And what do you think? Yes, I completely agree. It's the 2 really critical points for me. One, you can always tell when a man is pretending to be a woman. Second, they just will never ever experience what we experience in terms of male violence and discrimination. That's what holds us apart. Good. Okay, well, see you later at the meeting, sweetheart. Bye-bye. Oh, hey, how are you this morning?
I just overheard your conversation on the phone, and it made me very uncomfortable.
I'm so unhappy to hear that. What was going on?
Well, it was the way you talked about trans women. You can't just generalize like that.
Well, I'm sorry, dear. Is this an area of your expertise? Is this something you know a lot about?
What, can't you tell? I thought you could always tell.
My goodness. It's just become clear. Now I can see that you have been lying to me all this time.
Do you think I just mention it to every single person I meet that I'm trans?
Well, maybe you should. I'm not just any person. I'm not just any person. Remember this. I thought we were good friends.
Oh, so we're no longer friends because I told you I'm trans?
I let you into my home. I let you into my life. For God's sake, I even fed your cat when you were away.
And what has that got to do with it?
Well, you've quite obviously, what you've done is you've deceived me into thinking that you were a real woman.
What, do I look like a robot? I'm obviously a real woman.
You were not born a woman, and so you'll never really know what it is to be one.
Really, Penny?
Yes,
really?
Because bottom line, real women don't need to pretend to be women at all.
Oh, and in what way am I pretending?
You just don't know what it's like to be a woman. Not really.
All right, Penny. So tell me, what makes a real woman?
Well, for starters, it's about fertility, and it's the body itself. A real woman bleeds every month.
Not all cis women are fertile, nor do they menstruate. Does that make them any less women?
Well, women are oppressed and sexualized by men fundamentally because of their natural bodies.
I was just telling you yesterday how I was groped at that school fundraiser.
Yes, but you wouldn't even know what it's like to birth children. You can't birth children. This is an essence of being a woman.
Neither will you, Penny. You haven't had any children.
I don't think that you're fit to work with children in the way that you do. Taking in your delusions and your frankly mental illness into the school.
The 80s called, and they want their homophobic logic back.
I'm very much thinking now of reporting you for all this deceit, because it's just not right.
You have turned into the worst neighbor that I have ever had.
I think you'd better find yourself a new cat sitter. Oh.
1, 2, 3, 4. Then it came to you and me, this is how we're meant to be. Then it came to you and me, this is how we're meant to be. That's good. Not to freak anyone out, but there's someone staring at us over there, and they have been the entire time.
That's my neighbor Penny.
I sense tension.
I thought you two were friends.
So did I.
Okay. Do you want to just run through the song again?
1, 2, 3, 4. Chloe? Oi, Chloe!
Look, Carl, you can't just use your key to get in anymore. I don't want to have to change the lock.
Come on, Chloe, it was a surprise. I got you your favourite wine.
No, I stopped drinking and we broke up 3 months ago.
Come on. Do you know what? You should be fucking grateful I ever wanted you, you cat.
I want you to leave.
You're fucking nothing without me, you useless bitch. What is it? Are you seeing someone else?
Carl,
is it that blue-haired puff in your band?
Carl, you need
I knew
to
it was
leave
him.
now. You're scaring me.
Yeah, fucking good.
You just scared the cat, Carl.
And where's my cat? I want my cat back.
Not your fucking
I
cat.
paid for everything for that cat.
No, you fucking didn't, Carl.
You can't fucking talk to me like that. Who do you think you are?
You're fucking drunk.
I'm not drunk.
Wait,
I've
Carl.
only had 12. I'll teach you to not disrespect me like that.
I thought I heard Chloe telling you to leave.
Who the hell are you? And how did you get in here?
I'm Penny. I'm Chloe's neighbour. More than that, I'm Chloe's friend.
Well, this doesn't concern you, you old hag.
You have 10 seconds to get off her turf, or I call the police.
Fucking ridiculous.
I want my key back.
Chloe.
9.
Come on, stop. You don't need to do that. It's just
9.
a domestic.
9.
Key, Carl.
Chloe, come on.
You heard her. The key.
Fuck you.
Thanks. Didn't have to do that.
You're very welcome.
Here, let me get that off your face.
I just couldn't stand by and watch another
woman?
That is what I was going to say.
Didn't think you saw me as a woman.
I think we're very different.
I agree. think we're very different women.
Right now, I really don't know what to think. Oh, hi, Chloe.
Oh, hi, Penny. This is Lawrence, my partner.
Oh, Lawrence, I've heard a lot about you. Really nice to meet you. Good, hi.
Great to meet you. Just be a bit careful because I've just had my top surgery, so a bit tender right now.
Tops. Oh. Oh.
Hormones.
Hormones. I was assigned female at birth.
I was assigned male at birth.
I was 11 years old when I first started bleeding. I remember my body changing, growing. It scared me. I attempted to take my own life.
I banished parts of myself and hid them away.
My teenage years were lost years. I hated my body. But I don't want to tell you yet another story of a trans person
who hated themselves and their body. I had never for one day in my life conformed to what society thinks men should be like. My bone structure was mostly feminine and my voice never dropped.
Before I started taking testosterone, I was at a crossroads. Either go for it or not live at all. I was so desperate for hormones that I got them illegally. I just couldn't wait any longer.
My body became an ever-changing landscape that hormones resculpted.
There are so many things that hormones can change.
Hair.
Hair.
Fat distribution.
Fat distribution.
Cravings.
Cravings.
Sex drive.
Sex drive.
Skin.
Skin.
Voice.
Voice.
These are the things that hormones cannot change.
Body parts that have already developed.
Body parts like my bones.
Bones.
My Adam's apple.
My wrists.
My voice.
I would pose in the mirror and cover my breasts and imagine what I would look like without them.
This is where surgery might become a necessity for certain people.
I was obsessed with finding the visual representation of who I actually was. The effects of the hormones and my scars tell a story of my journey to finding myself.
I needed genital surgery, but its construction is more about other people and less about me. Sensation and ability to orgasm secondary. The act of penetration primary.
It's not like it's an easy journey. You have to change parts of yourself, deal with the complications, the infections, the recovery, and you are left with something else that you learn to love.
We have learned to look beyond that and realize it was a part of our journey of loving ourselves and our bodies.
There are layers and layers of learning to love yourself. Eventually, you have to realize that all these things that make you trans,
my Adam's apple,
my top surgery scars,
my big hands,
my hair,
my voice, are the things that make us beautiful.
Are the things that make you who you are.
And this is what I love about your body, about my body. We didn't go on this journey to hide once more.
I'm different, and my body may never conform. I'm trans, and I love all the things that
make me trans.
My name is Rose. I'm a transgender girl. I was born a boy, but I always knew that I was a girl.
My name is Devon. I'm a trans male. That means I was born female, and I live now as a male. When I was 3, I decided that I was going to grow up and be a father and marry Jaime Jackson.
She would write letters to Santa Claus, to the Tooth Fairy. When would I be turned into a girl? Could you turn me into a girl?
I'm Jay. I'm a non-binary trans person.
That means that I'm not a man, nor am I a woman. I was raised as a girl, but when I learned about non-binary gender identities, it was like a whole new world had opened up for me.
My name is Ronnie and my sister Ellie is transgender.
Ellie told us on her 4th birthday that she was a girl in her heart and her brain. And I said, "You're my favorite princess boy." And what did you say, Ellie?
No, I'm a princess girl.
My struggling point was this had to be a phase.
The reality is acceptance takes a while.
I was terrified of coming out. I was afraid of losing friends, family, loved ones. I was afraid of this discrimination and potential violence I could face.
I was so terrified that I wanted to die. Got threatening letters. One of the quotes said, do us a favor, Paula, and put that gun back up to your head and finish the job.
I'm scared as a dad for her safety, whether society will be as accepting as her family and her friends are.
I feel embarrassed and unsafe when people out me to other people.
If there isn't a gender-neutral bathroom available, when there are only men's and women's bathrooms, I have to make a decision about how I look that day and whether there's more risk for me going into the men's room or the women's room.
I was chased by 4 people in the metro for being transgender.
I have been denied health care. I have been gawked at. I've been humiliated. I have been physically assaulted several times when using a bathroom.
Seeing her face the first time we let her wear a dress outside of the house, pretty special.
You're different, that's okay. Just keep on being yourself.
Support means listening. Maybe not understanding, but just listening and being there for me.
Pushing back on jokes or offensive comments at the expense of transgender people.
The easiest way to support transgender people is to follow their lead.
Supporting transgender people means letting them be who they are.
I'm proud to be trans because I want to be myself.
I'm proud to be trans because I think life is too short to be anything besides what you are. This is who I am.
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 Hi, Angelica. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing good. So I'm going to ask a couple questions. In the opening clip, Rose said that she was born a boy, but always knew she was a girl. So I know as trans folks, coming into our identity and living authentically can sometimes be a little difficult. When did you know your true identity?
I can so relate to her because I knew my identity from day one. I just was confused with the body parts because in my growing up, I had an older brother, an older cousin who was like a brother, plus my dad. So my mom was really the only female in the house, but I identified more with her and I identified more with girl things. And I knew as far back as 3 to 5 years old, watching Fame and wishing I was Debbie Allen or Coco or Janet Jackson's character. So, yeah, I knew from day one. And it was confusing as a child because you want to be like everyone else, but you realize automatically that I'm different and I'm going to have a different struggle than a lot of other people will.
Yeah, I can completely identify with that. I knew young, but I didn't know how to put it in context. I didn't know how to put it into words, but I knew, especially when they would separate us in gym and I had to go with the boys, I was like, oh my God, what are you doing to me? You know, like I just never felt right. So as we know, microaggressions are real things. So when someone says like, oh, you don't look trans, or oh, I didn't know that you weren't born a woman, is that a form of flattery or insulting?
I think it's a catch-22. In a way, it's a form of flattery just because, especially from the generation that I'm from, the main objective was to be passable, or was to somewhat be able to live a stealth life to wherein you're not bringing too much attention to yourself. So in some ways it feels flattering, but in other ways is a little offensive, because it's like, so what about my other counterparts that may not look as realistic as myself, or quote unquote passable as me? I just think people need to be a little more sensitive to the plight of transgender individuals, so that you don't make certain comments like that, because to one person it could be offensive, to the other person it could be encouraging or flattering, but it's a kind of catch-22 because it can be both.
I agree completely. And I just think sometimes what it does is negate the fact that however you present is valid, however you express yourself is valid. And some people choose to want to pass, and that's great. And some people choose to want to just present how they want. And I think at the end of the day, however you present is beautiful. So I completely agree. I can get what people are saying, but I kind of take it as an insult sometimes, because I'm like, all my trans sisters and brothers and non-binary family are beautiful. I don't know about you, you know what I mean? But that's how 1000%.
Well, the beauty of them is that they've been able to live in their truth, and that the beautiful thing is that you decide not to worry about what society has to say, what your family may have to say, but you realize that by any means necessary that you're going to be the person that you are truly designed to be, and be okay with it. So yeah, it's that. They are beautiful because of that alone.
Absolutely. So I have a final question for you. Transgender folks face disproportionate rates of violence, particularly Black trans women, violence, discrimination, and oftentimes rejections from friends and family. Can you tell me about a time that you didn't feel safe or you felt discriminated against?
I would say it wasn't the first time, but one time that particularly like stands out. When I was in high school, I was blessed by my junior year. I was blessed to be able to be surrounded by at least 3 or 4 friends of mine, 2 that identify as trans now, and some that were just gay guys, but we were a unit. And there was a time at lunch, and it's like it was one of the times where I was by myself, and some of the guys wanted to pick and make fun, and someone threw something at me, and no one wanted to like fess up and say who it was. And I just made this scene. I was just out of control. I went kind of crazy and cussed everyone out. And the dean got like, why are you doing this? You're one of our good ones. And I was just so fed up of the nagging and the picking and the taunting that I lost it, and I was ready to fight whoever. And I got in trouble that day because I created a scene, but no one really got rectified or talked to about treating me the way they were treating me. And it was always that I needed to go back in a closet, go back in a shell, and do this so that people don't do this to you, instead of me just living my own truth. And that's one of the times of violence that I thought it could have got really, really bad. Someone could have got really, really hurt. And it was one of the first times, like, as a child, that I could recall, like, feeling, like, unsafe because of who I was.
No, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I don't think folks realize the amount of danger us as trans people are in on an everyday basis. And just us living out loud and living authentically, people feel that they have the right to kill us for that. So thank you so much for sharing. I absolutely adore you. And now I'm going to throw it back to Dr. Earl.
Good evening. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And now it's time for the panel discussion where we explore transgender lives in a little more details. All right, so joining us this evening are LGBTQ advocate, entertainer, and Pulse survivor, Angelica Jones Sanchez. We have a mom of a transgender son and former partner of a transgender woman, Angela Denk. Angela goes by the pronouns she and her. We have president and owner of Arquette Model Agency, Brita Jackson, and Brita goes by the pronouns she and her. We have high school educator and mom of a transgender daughter, Jaime Jara, pronouns she and her. And last but certainly not least, we have my amazing co-host and friend, Nikole Parker. Nikole is Director of Transgender Equality Florida, pronouns she and her, and is doing an incredible job throughout the state of Florida. So we're going to get this started, and I am going to pass it over to my amazing co-host, Nikole Parker.
Thank you so much, Dr. Earl, and I'm so happy to be here today with you all and sharing space. I'm so excited that we have 3 amazing movies for you all to watch, and I'm even more excited about these incredible panelists. You're going to learn so much about the trans experience and get to hear it by folks who live this every single day. So I want to jump in with a question for Jaime and Angela. So let's start with you, Jaime. What was your immediate thoughts when your child came out as transgender?
Finally. She'd been trying to find a way to express herself, not verbally because she couldn't speak. I mean, this was from like age 2 to 5, and finally knowing like, wow, like, yes, this is who she is. We have some confirmation here. And yeah, just being happy that she finally could, we could say, okay, unfortunately, it's kind of like putting a label on it, but it just kind of gave us some peace because we kind of knew where we were. And of course, the label, being trans is just one facet of who she is. So.
Absolutely. I love that. And I have to say, Dempsey is my hero. And I tell everybody I can that she is one of the most amazing human beings that I've ever met. So Angela, I want to pass it to you. What were your immediate thoughts when your child came out as transgender?
Similar to Jaime, it was a feeling of finally and relief for my child. My son was older when he came out. He was about 13 years old, and I had been in a waiting place because signs had been there, I can truly say, from at least 3 years old on. There were clues, there were behaviors, there was just honestly a male vibe coming off of my child, but I had to let him come out in his time to us. So I'll never forget, he told me we were driving and that forced my back to be toward him. He didn't want to look at me. He was nervous. And it was just a tremendous sense of relief to hear him finally say it and to be able to tell him that was just fine.
No, I completely hear what you're saying. And first of all, Jaime and Angela, I want to thank you so much for being affirming parents, because a lot of the times transgender folks don't have affirming families. And that's where the love begins in the home. And also what both of you said reaffirms that being trans isn't a choice. I tell people all the time, I love being trans, but I wouldn't necessarily choose it if I could, but I just chose to live authentically. So thank you so much for sharing that. So Brita, I want to throw it to you. I know that you have a super inclusive talent agency. So I wanted to know what inspired you to reach beyond the perceived norm when recruiting talent.
Hi, Nikole. I really don't think that I actually thought about what was norm and what wasn't norm when it came to who I was going to choose to be in my agency. I feel like norm can be so many different definitions. So I just wanted to go with where wherever my heart went and where the path went and what I felt was right. And whatever I found down that path, and if I believed in that person, then that's where it took me. I'm also a huge advocate for a lot of people in my industry already, and very protective. So I think that also kind of fueled the fire of me building an agency that had all different norms.
I love that. And thank you so much for what you do because, as a trans person, I don't necessarily always feel welcome. I don't feel like a lot of places are open and affirming. And the fact that you have a talent agency, which would allow folks to showcase who they are unapologetically, is unmatched. So thank you so much for all you do. So Angela, question for you. What are some things that you worry most about for your child? And of course, every parent worries about their kid, but especially trans and non-binary kids have a lot more issues and dangers that could affect them. So what are some things that you worry about?
I don't even know how to succinctly say what I worry about with my son. I worry about violence. As you said, we have worries for all children, right? But trans people and youth are at greater risk of violence everywhere they go. We chose to homeschool at a certain point. There were locker room issues, there were washroom issues, and those things persist into adulthood. I worry about that for my son. I worry honestly about the cost and the medical care of being trans because right now the insurance industry, the medical community, it's not trans friendly. To accomplish, once he starts making decisions potentially about surgeries, will he have the money? Can he fund this? Will my child spend the rest of his life not feeling completely who he is because of dollars? I don't know these things. I worry about cruelty from other people. I worry about acceptance. And that just fuels me at home to kind of bolster him because I can't prevent that. None of us can. And that's sobering and somber to say, but this is what trans people are up against their whole lives. So the way I see it is if I buffer my child with love and let them know they're not wrong, they can go out into the world when they face those things and understand that's who's wrong, not them.
Angela, I did want to mention one thing, because if this comes across my mind, I'm sure a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing too. So we don't even think about the medical costs, right? Insurance, how does all of that factor in as we protect our communities, right? So, we always hear about the bullying and the violence, but there's this other area that needs to become salient, relevant to people, because this is critical. This is very critical. And I think that we should probably open up that conversation. We talk about conversation starters to, in a more broader context of things. So Nikole, thank you.
Yeah, no, and to expand on that a little bit, competent healthcare. Because anybody can say that they can treat a transgender person, but can you really? Do you know how to say the right pronouns? Do you know what hormone levels and all of these things? It's very different when it comes to us. Hormone levels can make us go up and down and all around. Having someone, I was just at an event with one of my friends, and they told me that they had gotten to a car accident and went to a hospital that happened to be more of a religious hospital. And because they were trans, were completely denied care simply because they were trans and they were in an emergency situation. And these things happen every single day. And I think that's something that folks don't really understand about the trans experience, is how much discrimination we truly face on a daily basis.
Correct. I don't want to take too long on this, but to the point of that still, we have a competent medical provider, but that doesn't mean the insurance companies are on board. I can tell you that just about every month when we go to get my son's tea from the pharmacy, there's a different objection from our insurance company. And I've reached a point where I'm like, okay, GoodRx card, I'll pay out of pocket. I can't even fight it at this point because I want my child to be healthy and have the medicine he needs.
Absolutely. And it's just, thank you so much for highlighting that, because I don't think folks understand. I think, I've heard people say, oh, you all have your rights and everything. I'm like, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think we have a long way to go, but thank you so much for highlighting that. So Brita, I wanted to ask you, do you think there's a lack of trans representation in sectors outside of community organizations? And what would you suggest to changing that? Because you're a leader in that space. You're hiring folks just based off of if they can do the job, and it doesn't matter how they present or who they are. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my first hesitance when I see workplaces hire someone who is trans is tokenism. I don't believe in that, and I don't feel that that's the right path to go. And so I feel that it's really important to have an inclusive workplace, but to also have it where you're talking about policies to support the trans community prior to running into that policy that you have to make a decision on, so that when it comes up, you're able to go ahead and say, oh, we have that already in play. I don't think a lot of companies have thought about that ahead of time. I think they're still pulled back and like, well, if we hire this many, or if we come up on that issue, or just a minor issue that they figure that's an issue to their workplace, and they don't just think about the person as a whole as just being a part of the whole workplace. It gets dicey in that sense. Am I making sense on that? Yeah. So I feel that there needs to be funds and time put in, and also to just look at individuals as if they can actually do the job, and if they're just good at their job. End of story. But also community outreach wise, outside of the workplace, I feel that there needs to be a campaign that goes on beyond educating, more on how, like, the support of trans. So maybe kind of go from like educating on like this what it is, more so of like, this is what we need from you. Does that make sense? Because I think a lot of people just don't know what's needed, and they're not knowing how to cross over to that path. Just like you talked about with hormones, I work with a lot of young trans, and that's when they start hormones. and so I have to remind them as well that, hey, it's okay. Like, it's a process. We're going to learn this together. We're going to understand the why you're having this breakdown right now, and how to deal with your triggers, because we want to keep each individual, no matter what, healthy, emotionally, mentally, physically. So we kind of prep ahead of time and talk all about that, so that when things do come up, we already know how to handle it.
No, I think that's amazing. I scream from the mountaintops all the time that just because we're trans, it doesn't negate the fact that we're human. It doesn't negate the fact that we have emotions, that we're not here to just check a box or make something diverse. You know what I mean? We bring so much more to the table than that. And I truly wish that more organizations, instead of being afraid to hire a trans person, realize that we're some of the most creative people, and we can bring a lot to someone's company. So hopefully, especially with this younger generation, that we can see the needle really move, and people just be hired because they can do the job, not because they are diverse or they check a box. So I completely agree with you.
I think that, and this could be some half conjecture, half not, but I think that even in the society's narrative of LGBTQ, right? Sometimes the T gets, kind of marginalized within that category, right? So people focus on the LGB to an extent, on the LG and to an extent B, right? But then it's what Brita said. We need a national campaign or something to make that more prominent, because you can bring someone into an organization, right, and two things can happen: they can advance or they can stagnate, right? Are there protective measures where the trans community actually have that platform to advance, or are they just being tokenized to an extent? Right, so we see LGBT to an extent advancing in certain areas, right? But is that opportunity also available to our trans brothers and sisters, or to stop on the lines, the margins of tokenism? So I think that we need to have some kind of campaign, national campaign, that addresses that, because it is of concern.
Yeah, and I think, there needs to be an understanding of the trans experience. And what I mean by that is some folks were kicked out young and had to figure out life. Some people, everybody's on a different spectrum when it comes to where they're at in life. And I think, there needs to be a little bit of grace, and not just the trans community, people in general, grace given to folks who, if they have the potential and you can help teach them, bring them in and teach them. You know what I mean? Instead of, oh, you can't do this, or you can't do that, or you don't look this way or that way. I just think as a society, we kind of have to move past all of that and really look at people, if they can do the job or if they have the potential, then help them to kind of get there. So I completely agree, Dr. Earl. So Jaime, I want to ask, what was the process for you as a parent coming to terms with your child's gender identity? Now, I know that you are an amazing advocate, but as a parent, I'm sure you had some feelings and some thoughts of your own. So what was that process like?
Sure. So for us, there really wasn't a turning point. I mean, we always just accepted her for who she was. We just followed her lead, let her be herself, and kind of really tried to catch up with her as best as we could. We love her. We affirmed her from the beginning, and it's just kind of been following her and seeing where she leads us. I mean, and also I wanted to actually speak to with the doctors. That's one of the reasons that we moved from Miami to the Orlando area, because we couldn't find a doctor that would treat her. And now we have found a doctor that would treat her. But my worry is that they're going to take away her right in the legislature to have this care. And so that's also a huge concern for me regarding that. But as far as a turning point, there really wasn't one. She's amazing. Like I said, she's a lot. She's 10, and she's big for 10. She's a lot to handle. So, and not because she's trans. That's the easiest thing, pretty much. But yeah, we really didn't have a turning point. We've always just been, on the road with her and following her lead and educating ourselves as we go.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Can I just say though that this is such a blessing to hear Jaime and Angela speak so affirmingly of their child, right? Of their children. So you mentioned something earlier, right? You said, Angela, you said finally, and Jaime, you said something similar to that when your kids came out, right? So let's help some parents that are experiencing things like that, right? How do they know? If they suspect it? I mean, is it? I don't know how to really put this in words, but are they suspecting something real? And if they do suspect it, do they go to their child and open up that conversation? Do they wait for their child to open up that conversation? Let's help some parents along those lines. What would you recommend?
I mean, for me, it's like just really listening to your child, talking to them, making them feel comfortable, affirming them in any way that you can. If they're asking for nail polish, or they're asking for an outfit, or even little things like that are really, really big things. If you don't reject your child at all. Like, to me, I don't understand. For me, anytime I see parents that are complete opposite of me and my husband, it's like heartbreaking, because I see these kids. I have a student that is, not affirmed by her family, and it breaks my heart. Just listen to them. And there's tons of questions. I didn't know anything about trans people, and until I was blessed with a trans child. So I had to learn and do that self-education, reach out to resource groups like PFLAG and places like that, where you can ask questions but not insult or reject your child. There are going to be questions that you don't know the answer to. We all make mistakes as parents, but be there, learn from your mistakes. Really, I mean, I mess up sometimes on when I meet someone new on their pronouns, and I correct myself. It's not always easy to get it right every single time, but as long as you're trying and you make that effort, that's a step in the right direction.
If I could say anything to parents out there who have an inkling that perhaps their child is trans, what I would say you're charged to do is make sure they know that they live in an inclusive, open, accepting family without forcing them out, because that's their decision. To the point of, do you bring it to them? I would say absolutely not. If you're not ready, if anyone isn't ready to talk about something that's painful, it's embarrassing, it's exposing, and that's the last thing any of us want to do to our kids, even if it's coming from a great place, even if it's coming from a place of, hey, buddy, I see who you are and I love you anyhow. Let them tell you, let them come to you. But in the meantime, you make sure they know through the conversations they overhear, the faces you make, the way you treat other human beings in and out of your home, you make sure your kid knows that you are a loving, inclusive, accepting, non-judgmental person. So when they are ready on their own time, they feel okay coming to you with that.
Absolutely, Angela. And, I tell people all the time, please, please, please don't be your child's first bully. Please, as a parent, it's okay to not know. But don't let them necessarily know that. Reach out to local LGBTQ organizations, support groups, other parents of trans youth, to ask those questions. And once they come out to you and you have that conversation, it's okay to ask questions. But please, please, please just take the time to kind of process your feelings with other adults or something like that, because you don't want to be your child's first bully. You want to make sure, like Angela and Jaime said, that the home is a safe space for them to be who they are and live authentically, because the world is scary. The world is dangerous. And the one place that you want them to be comfortable in is at home. So absolutely. Thank you both so much for sharing that. So Angela, I do want to ask you a question. What did you learn about being an ally from having a trans partner? And what would be something that you could suggest to other allies that are wanting to be better at it?
Thank you for asking that and just bringing that up here, Nikole. I think about it sometimes, like, what are the odds of, I had a trans partner who she was not out when we met and started dating, and through the course of the relationship that happened, and then a trans child. And I just want to say first that the odds of that, what I've landed on, are that the cis world gender binary is clearly made up, is what I want to say about those odds. And moving on from that, what I learned as a partner to a trans woman coming out and transitioning was that resilience is key. When I watched those films, they were all wonderful, but I'm going to tell you, the scene where the neighbor is spying over the fence, like, punched me in the gut, because I have been in a grocery store with my trans partner while some person followed us down the aisle next to us, peeking over. And people don't believe that's real until you experience it. They think it's hyperbole, it's exaggeration, it's self-victimizing. It is not. That is the world we live in. So what I had to really learn there was how to keep myself together, because I could feel my blood pressure, my temper, my emotions rage sometimes with the treatment that she received in public. But what I learned was that if I didn't keep myself together, now she has a whole new level of emotional conflict, upset, guilt. I almost liken it to the guardians who walk people at abortion clinics through protesters, and put your blinders on. Don't give them your energy. Just get your person safely through. And that is really what I learned from having a transgender partner, is to be strong, to get my person through.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Angela. Brita, as an amazing ally, what is a suggestion that you could give to another ally who wants to be even better?
I would say listen, respect, learn, and support. Simple 4 words. And I think the hardest part is number 2 for a lot of people. Everybody has their own opinion, but you need to respect their opinion. And you got to respect who they are as a person. And it goes both ways, no matter who you are and what you do. It's not our job to judge here in humanity. It's our job to love and learn and support each other. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. I completely agree. It's about our collective humanity. At the end of the day, we're all just human. Mm-hmm. How about you, Jaime?
For me, I would say educate yourself, show up for the trans community, have difficult conversations. I do all of the time, and it's hard, but it helps, because once you open a dialogue, then people are at least talking about it. It's not something you can hide in the corner or hide somewhere. So keep talking, keep showing up, and have difficult conversations.
Absolutely. And, the one thing I always tell people is challenge your friends and family. And what I mean by that is all of us have been in a space where we've heard negative talk about LGBTQ people or trans folks. And I often say, when you hear it, ask somebody, why do you think that way? Have you ever met a trans person? What do you know about trans people? And a lot of the time that conversation will set the light bulb off. And when you look at something differently, the people around you sometimes will change the way that they see it as well. So I think sometimes we forget that we, in our family and our friend circles, we have the right to ask somebody those questions. We're close to them, So if you ever hear it, just challenge them, and not necessarily in an aggressive way, but just simply ask, have you ever really met a trans person? Do you know what they go through? And a lot of the times when people really find out what the trans experience is like, they tend to see things differently.
I'm going to ask a question to the panel, right? And thank you, Nikole, for that, right? So I think that sometimes people really want to help, right? But help starts with communication, right? And so there can be folks that are out there that want to help, but they don't even know how to engage in a conversation with someone, a trans person, right? So what advice can you give to that person that, I don't know, I might ask the wrong thing or say the wrong thing or you know what I mean? And so because of that, they just alienate themselves instead of helping. The heart is there, but they don't know how to communicate or afraid of saying the wrong thing. You know what I mean? So what kind of advice can we give to folks that are in that predicament?
I'll go first, I guess. So I would say there's 2 ways to go about it. Either number one, you could say, with all due respect, I need to ask you a question, and don't be offended to this. But more so, I think I would also just suggest to someone to just say, look, I'm going to ask you a question. It's because I don't know the answer. I'm naive. I haven't been educated yet, but I really want to know. Can you help me? So I would say one of those 2 ways would probably be the best, depending on the situation that you're in.
I want to add, though, too, keep in mind that not every trans person is an encyclopedia. So we shouldn't be asking them all these questions, especially inappropriate ones like, former names and surgeries. It's so inappropriate. And I get asked all the time for my kid, and she's only 10. So just, I guess, when you're asking these questions, keep in mind that, some things are going to be offensive. And so maybe don't ask the trans person. Maybe do some research on your own and then come back when you have a better understanding, I guess. I don't know if I'm wording that right.
Jaime, what you said is so important, in my opinion. Trans people don't owe an explanation of themselves to the world. That is not the price of being who you are. I don't pay that price for being who I am. I wear my hair kind of weird some days, but nobody thinks that it's their right to demand to know, why do you pin your hair up like that? But somehow a trans person living out loud, people assume like, oh, you're a specimen. Tell me, so Jaime, thank you for bringing that forward. And I just agree with what both of my co-panelists said, that they don't owe you those answers, but also own your ignorance. If you don't know, come at it that way. Hey, I don't know this. And if you've done the work and can't figure it out and you feel it's an appropriate question to ask this person, just come from that place of honesty and openness and truly wanting to know in an earnest, non-harmful fashion.
No, I thank you all so much for, everything that you said. I completely agree. As a trans person, I've accepted I have to be the teacher always, because I very rarely come across someone who understands my experience. But what I tell people is just talk to me like a human. Get to know me first before you start asking me what I've done, how long I've been transitioned and things like that, because it gets kind of weird. Perfect way that Angela, put it. I often feel like a specimen. I feel like people are picking and prodding and want to know different parts about me. But to know me is to know that I'm an open book, but I have to get to know you a little bit before that, So I would say the best thing is just talk to us, and we can feel intention. If someone genuinely doesn't know something and wants to know, you can feel that, versus someone who is trying to be slick or say something negative or we can feel those intentions. But also in the back of your mind, if it comes off inappropriate to you, I guarantee you it's inappropriate. Like, perfect example, people like to fascinate about the medical procedures that trans people get. But let's say a cisgender woman got her nose done. You're not going to go up to her and say, did you get your nose done? Nobody wants to kind of talk about that. So just because I'm trans doesn't mean you can come ask me, what procedures I've gotten done or anything. That's the most common question. But, long story short, just talk to us like a human. And once we've developed a relationship, most folks, not all, but most folks would be comfortable kind of answering your questions. So yeah, I want to thank my panelists so much. You all have been amazing and so insightful, and truly helping folks who are listening here to understand the experience of trans people. So I just want to thank you for being incredible allies, being incredible parents, and we need more people like you in this world. So thank you so much. And I'm going to throw it back to Dr. Earl.
Thank you, Nikole. And in closing, I am compelled to acknowledge that although the trans movement has made significant progress in the last decade, trans folks, our brothers and our sisters, still face blatant discrimination, violence, and poor health outcomes. The situation is even more dire for trans people of color, who often have far worse outcomes as they have to navigate multiple oppressive systems. It's all wrong. Our trans brothers and sisters are just humans who made changes to their lives for the better, just as all people have. That's something that should be noted. This is Dr. Mowatt. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we'll see you again at the next Conversation Starter. And God bless.